I had this period um, a few years ago. I had to really think about that because this one feels more recent, this memory, I guess. In like 2023, I moved back to the city, Chicago, and I ended up having a long sequence of jobs that were almost all really terrible in their own ways. I The first one was Mariano's, and Mariano's was like a true prison. It was like the worst fucking. It was that might be the worst job I've ever had, honestly. I don't. Maybe Dave and Buster's is was like a little bit worse than that. I remember Dave and Buster's being pretty bad. Had that when I was 17 years old. Mariano's, this was when I was around 22, 23. And Mariano's was so horrible. It was just like there was no structure to it. Sometimes structure can be a bad thing in jobs, pretty much everything can be a bad thing in certain contexts and in jobs, but with Mariano's it was like the structurelessness was so that what ended up being like one of the worst things about the job because it was structurelessness in the sense that you were just on the register for like basically 8 hours a day. Like you would just be standing there, like ringing up people for 8 hours, and it was just a constant flow of people. Like there was never any downtime. There was never any time where you would just be where you would even get to just stand there and have no one come through. It was just constant. It was just a constant flow of people. And so you'd be ringing up. I had the cashier job, and so if you were on the in-person, if you were like doing in-person cashier, they would stand there, they would put the shit they bought there, and you would just like scan it through, pick it up, scan it through. If it's a fruit or a vegetable, you would uh, type in the code or type in, the word really fast and try to find what it was. And then you would bag it, and ideally you'd be bagging as were scanning. And obviously that's not a hard thing to do. None of those tasks are really that hard because it's a menial entry level job. But to do it all, I mean, there was just this kind of expectation of speed because and you really felt like they didn't need to say anything about it. That's what I mean again, the structurelessness. It's just like they didn't say anything. They didn't say like you got to be fast. It's just like they put you there, and if you weren't fast, you would have like a line of people like a mile long in like 2 seconds because like if you were like really struggle, if you like mess up and you have to like type punch something in and you fuck it up and then you have to go back and delete an item off the thing, it's like then suddenly there are like five more people in your line. It was a fucking nightmare. It was just like every day like they were just like hammering nails into your head. Every person that comes up is just like again, 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 again. That was one thing you could do. And then the other thing that they would put you on was just a little bit easier than that, but not by that much. and it was the self-checkout person. And the self-checkout person basically just stands there as people come up and do the self-checkout, which is great because then you don't have to fuck around with all the items that they have. But what you do have to do is you have to be in charge of, if the machines fuck up, then you have to like correct the machines. And sometimes, which happens basically constantly, the machines would constantly be like blinking, like if it thinks it detects someone trying to steal something, or if it thinks that or if anyone's trying to buy alcohol on the self checkout, then you have to like look at their IDs, put the thing in, and then put their birthday in, and then have it clear them for that. And that could kind of become a nightmare because we would be going through and like suddenly like two people are buying alcohol, and then one of the machines fucks up, and then it's just you. There's never anybody else. And yeah, that was the thing I'll always remember about that one was that they would give us these horribly short, like 15-minute breaks in our shifts. We got like two 15-minute breaks or something. It was like completely illegal. And when I was back there for the 15-minute breaks, there was always this old guy who would heat up some kind of microwave food in the dirty ass break room microwave, and he would bring the food, like he would microwave it, he would bring it over to his table at the break room, and he would just fucking wolf it down. He would just eat it so fast. And it was just like, man, I gotta get out of here. I gotta leave now. This is like not a good place. Um, then after that, I worked at DSW. Was that? Yeah, I think that was after. I worked at DSW, Designer Shoe Warehouse. That was a lot easier, and that's a lot more pleasant because the things that you're handling are shoes, and shoes will, do not, shoes are not wet. They won't get mystery liquids on you. You don't have to worry about getting ranch dressing all over your clothes or something like that. So shoes, I'm a fan of shoes. Um, there's kind of a weird vibe in the DSW though. There are some real lifers at DSW, I guess, and they just the only people I could talk to were like kids who were younger than me working there. I couldn't talk to any of these like older people. They all just had this horrible attitude, and especially this one manager was just like he totally hated me. He was just like, I remember this one time I was in the back room, and I was like, sometimes we'd have to like cut up boxes of the clearance shoes, and I remember I had the garbage can next to me, and it was like kind of getting full, and he's like, "Dude, look at this garbage can. Like, when it's full like this, you know what we have to do? We have to push it down a little bit. You ever done that before?" It's like Jesus Christ, dude. Like, what is going like, dude? Like, I don't know. That was a real get out of here moment at DSW for me. Definitely, it's like this fucking random guy screaming at me. It's just like, what? I didn't do anything to you, man. We're all in this together. We're all at DSW together, you know. You're not. I don't know. I don't know what was going on in their heads really. It's kind of a dark place. It's kind of an evil place to me. And then what happened after DSW? I got a job at Jewel. Yes, the another grocery store. And Jewel, I actually liked a lot better than Mariano's or DSW. And it sounds really funny because Jewel is easily the most depressing looking place I think maybe I've ever worked, because it's just this big gray warehouse, and then your uniform that they give you is a gray shirt. And I remember feeling like I was in this kind of like I was like some kind of I don't know how I would put it, like in a totalitarian society, like some kind of dystopian society or something where we're all made to wear gray or something like that. Like it looked like some kind of thing that you would wear if you were like an alien slave or something. That's what the Jewel outfit looked like. But I actually kind of I liked Jewel because the attitude at Jewel from everyone, the managers, the workers, the young, the old, it was all just kind of like, we don't care, man. Like, we don't care what you do. You can just fucking do anything you want, basically, because it's fucking Jewel, you know? It's just like, that was really refreshing to me, because the worst thing ever is when you're at a job like that and some fucking manager is like, all right, let's get going, guys. You know, got a great day ahead of us or something like that. It's just like, dude, did no one tell you where you are? Like, what do or, you know, you think you're gonna work up the corporate hierarchy. You're gonna be the CEO of fucking Dave and Buster's or something. But yeah, Jewel was chill. That's how I would describe it. It was a chill environment. It was good. Nobody gave a fuck about anything. And I remember talking to the I talked to the younger, there were like some college students there, and there was one guy who was going to film school, and I talked to him about movies. And I remember one of the other kids was he was like a 17-year-old there, and I remember he was saying like he was telling me like, I don't know if my friends are all going to something tomorrow, but I don't know if I should skip school to go. And I remember as I was like doing the register, he was bagging, I was doing the register, and he was just like, and I was just like, oh, well, I don't know, maybe you should skip school. And then as I was doing that, this old lady was listening to us, and she just gave me this look like I was corrupting the youth because I told this younger kid to not go to school. um, and I remember Jewel was that the bad thing about Jewel was they stayed open until like 12. I don't know if they do that around where you live, whoever's listening to this, but they did it there, and I was found that really shocking that this fucking grocery store was open until 12 at night, 12 in the morning. And I remember doing some night shifts, and the night shifts were very, very surreal. It's very surreal to be in a grocery store at like 11:50 at at night. And I remember this guy came in, and he was like right at the end of the night shift, and he was like, "Yeah, I work at the hospital in the trauma ward, and I see the worst shit every day. I see guys coming in with bullet wounds, and I see just horrible stuff, man." And then this guy who was checking him out, like one of my coworkers, I think his name was Harold, and Harold was like, he's like, yeah, that reminds me of last night I had a dream where I I just looked at someone and I could tell when they were going to die. And then the guy, the guy that worked at the hospital was like, "That's heavy, man. That's heavy." It's like really, really great interactions like that would be happening all the time at Jewel. And I only worked at Jewel for a little bit, and then I got a job at a hospital, and it was actually the same hospital that that guy had been talking about. It was this hospital that wasn't too far away from the Jewel. And my job at the hospital was I was a food worker at the hospital. And how that works is all the food services are located in the basement of the hospital. And they have this kind of makeshift assembly line where they've set up all the refrigerators and they've set up all of the the hot food, and then they have this like little roller assembly line so that you can push the tray through to the different stations and just like here's the juice station, and you open the refrigerator and whoever's working the juice station opens the refrigerator and adds the juice to the thing if it says that the patient ordered juice, and then you push it along to the next station. So basically it was kind of like working in it seemed like working in a factory. I've never worked in a factory before, but it seemed kind of like an assembly line, but we were assembling trays of food for patients at the hospital. And that was a very, very weird job. I remember because part of it was also that you would do these things called late trays. And the late trays would be the trays that didn't make it on the first wave to all the patients. And so you're bringing just food trays to people all over the hospital, and you just do it by yourself. And so I would go with this little cart full of food trays, and I would be going to the rehab ward, and then I would go to the uh like I would go to a place where you would hear like people giving birth, and then I would go to like the cancer ward, and I would see guys that like with their faces fucked up or something. Like I never knew what happened to anybody, but I saw it was like people throwing up, and I from my perspective I didn't see anything too gory. They don't let you see like crazy shit like that if you're just a food worker, but it was a really weird feeling to even just be in the same place that these things were happening. I I remember kind of feeling a lot of thoughts going through my head about how like in this same building people are dying and being born like seemingly constantly is what it felt like to me. It's just like constant birth and constant death above and below me while I was delivering the late trays. Very, very weird place. Strange experience. I feel like I'm still kind of thinking and processing a lot about it. And then after that, I worked at a place called Sweet Green, which is basically a chain started by, I guess they're like Silicon Valley guys or something. That was my impression of them. And the genius idea behind Sweet Green is that it's like Chipotle, only you make bowls of salad instead of burritos and things. So it's a really great idea. and it made them $1 billion. Except it didn't, because if you look it up, they actually are losing money at as far as I'm aware, unless this has changed recently. I remember looking up the company and finding out information about Sweetgreen while I was working there, and finding out that the company is actually losing money. And that's pretty impressive to me, to be losing money when the salads all cost like 15 or $20. I mean, it's like you get people somehow to pay $20 for a salad. You'd think you'd be making money, but for some reason they're not. And that's the job that I got to be the dishwasher at. I was the dishwasher at Sweetgreen. And I really Sweetgreen was another kind of good one because it was also casual in the same way that Jewel was. It's just like nobody here cares. Nobody cares about anything. And you know, we're just serving people this shit, we're just making the slop, This doesn't matter. I remember that there was this old guy who was a manager at Sweetgreen, and in the night shifts you could always smell the alcohol on his breath. And I liked him. I thought he was funny. He was this old guy, and he asked me if I was a gangbanger one time because he was just trying to like fuck with me. He was like, hey Holly, you into gangbanging? Is that what you do? And it's like, what do you say to that? Just like, no, no, I'm not. But he ended up getting fired for coming in drunk. And I remember the one time, like the head manager came in to watch him at a night shift. The head manager came in to watch him work, and he was just like he was just like had this complete like panic. He was just in panic mode, and he took us all in the back room, and he was just and like the other manager was just standing out there, and he was just like, "Listen, guys, whatever he says, you do." It's just like not prepared at all for the main manager to like be observing him or anything like that. But I felt bad for him because I didn't want him to get fired. That's a fun guy to have. That's a fun guy, a guy who's drinking on the job. You don't want to lose that guy. But this was all in the span of like I'm getting a phone call. But anyway, all these jobs were in the span of about 2 years. Actually, I guess if we include Sweetgreen, a little more, but if we don't, I think it's a little less. And during this whole time, ended up, I kind of wore it like a badge of honor. Like I would always just have a different job. And I remember thinking like this precariousness has to be my strength, because precarity or precariousness, it's really feels really bad. It feels really bad, especially applied to jobs. It's just like I don't want to have to get a new job. Like that sounds fucking terrible. And it is terrible to like go through the process of trying to get a new job, but if I, and it was terrible, but every time I would try and I would think about how the precariousness had to be something that I learned to appreciate just because I didn't really have a choice. I didn't want to stay at the job I was at. I didn't want to get another job. It's like the maybe the best way to go about it is to just try and appreciate being precarious. Because when you're precarious, you aren't tied to anything. That is the positive thing about living a precarious life. You're not tied to anything. You're not like the managers of some of these places who really are tied to these places. And when you think about that, when I think about that, it kind of made me feel bad for the managers to just think like, man, you really can't leave, can you? You're tied to this, but I can't, I can leave whenever I want. I'm free. All I got to do is just go through the process of getting a new job, which I've already done like a million fucking times. So, yeah, learn to appreciate it.